Today, St. Paul author's latest book sheds light on a popular exhibit at the Science Museum of Minnesota. We're talking Mummies, New Secrets from the Tombs.
Yeah, it's a really cool exhibit. I've seen it myself in Scott Wright's book. Carrying the Mummy is a fictional story, but loosely based on his life growing up here and working at the museum when he was just a boy. Scott Wright joins us now. Good morning. Thank you for being here. We appreciate it.
Yep, glad to be here.
So how long did you actually work at the Science Museum in Minnesota?
Probably a little less than 10 years, from the time I was 13 years old till I was in college.
You make it sound like a small chunk of time, but like 10 years is a pretty good chunk of time.
It was a big part of my upbringing, my adolescent years.
And what was your job then?
I did all kinds of things, but I got the job originally as a volunteer, which the museums didn't have volunteer programs of any size, but I got to know an individual who was the biology head of the biology department, and I went to him. I just said, you know, is there anything I can do around here on a volunteer basis? So he put me to work classifying snail shells, which was interesting. And one day, maybe a week or two after I started doing that, the director of the museum came through and he looks at me and he says, "So you're the kid that Mr. So-and-so is having as a volunteer." He says, "You know, we can't have, I don't feel comfortable having a kid volunteering. Could we offer you a small paying job?"
Wow.
Why not?
So I got 5 hours a week at 85 cents an hour. And I thought I was in second heaven. Because the paycheck, you know, every 2 weeks, $8.50 was, you could buy more. You could buy more in those days.
So this obviously left quite an impression on you. Here, years later, you're writing a book influenced by your time there. Tell us more about it.
Well, first of all, if you're thinking of the modern museum, and the one I'm talking about is 3 museums back. And it was in a brownstone mansion up behind the state capitol. And it had been renovated into a museum, but you know, if you look behind the exhibits, you could see fireplaces and, you know, carved woodwork and all kinds of wonderful things.
Oh wow!
So it was a very different kind of operation, you know. And I forgot where the original.
Well, and I'm just curious how you got from then to now writing a book influenced by the museum.
Well, it was a big part of my life growing up, and I knew somehow I wanted to tell that story, mostly because of the people that were involved. Just a wonderful set of characters. I mean, the custodian, the carpenter, you know, I mean, these guys were full of interesting information, and they were kind of almost like surrogate parents to me, you know. I mean, my dad worked, you know, long hours and so forth. And so I spent a lot of time down there talking to these guys, and I, you know, got a lot of wisdom from them. And I could tell you one story. One guy that I knew who was a part-time guard, he became a pretty good friend of mine, and he and I would talk a lot about things. And when I was a junior in high school, I wanted to get a car, and my parents didn't think that was such a good idea. So I told him about that, and he said, you know, he says, "You're a good kid, you're a responsible kid, you know, someday I'll have a talk with your father." And I thought, good Lord. Well, he gave me a ride home, and as chance would have it, my dad was out in the front yard cutting bushes, pulls the car over, gets out of the car, he says, I'll be right back. I said, "I have a little word with your dad." I thought, oh my God, this is the end of my life, you know. But he left in, and I went to see how things were with my dad, and he said, "Oh, your friend from the museum stopped by and told me what a good kid you are, and had some really nice things to say about you." Then apparently after that, he went in and talked to my mom, and after supper, they offered to sell me their old car.
Things were all right.
For $50. So I got the car, and I thought, wow.
Well, congratulations on the book. Unfortunately, we're running out of time, but obviously a good connection, and the Mummies, perfect timing, because the Mummies exhibit runs through Labor Day.
And you've seen it, right?
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Very impressive.
Yeah,
very
it's really cool.
Very, you know, the modern techniques are so different than what they were in the old days.
And where can people find your book?
They can find it at Subtext in bookstore in downtown St. Paul, and at Minnesota Historical Society, and at the Science Museum.
Cool.
All right.
So
thank you. Congratulations.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yep.